morning. Welcome to East Union on this third Sunday of Lent. To me, Lent is a season when we're called to humility. We give up some things to remind ourselves of that which we often take for granted. To humbly say to ourselves, we really are rich and have an abundant life, relatively speaking, and we should not take the many blessings that we have for granted. True Christian humility reflects the life and methods of Christ, a man who rejected the use of power and force to achieve his goals, who chose to live among the working class rather than the rich, who refused to use violence in the face of danger, who used stories rather than intellectual treatises to make a point, who washed people's feet, anyone's feet, who chose simple people like himself to spread his message, and whose only request of all of us is a transformation of mind that asks us to humbly give up what this world defines as success and spend our lives working at making the world a better place. Lent is a time of spiritual reflection when we humbly ask ourselves, are we living the life that Jesus requires of us? Are we transformed in mind and deed? Are we working toward that society where justice and peace will reign forever? Let's turn to our announcements. The women of the church will meet this Wednesday. There will be a time when Wanda Yoder will read a devotional. On Wednesday evening is Chow, where Marlon Logan will be talking about his recent trip to the borderlands for MCC. The My Coins Count wagon that was pulled around the last few weeks was very successful. The amount is there that was raised. There is a change in the office manager's hours. They are noted there on the screen. Phone directory updates are ready. If you didn't get one, sign up for one. And finally, the East Union Choir will meet on Wednesdays at 6:30 through Easter, from now through Easter. Are there other announcements from the sanctuary?
Hi, this is Dave Coons. Just making a little announcement that some of us are planning on a board game meetup here at church on the 24th, probably about 2 o'clock. There'll be some details coming up in future bulletins. Thanks.
Are there announcements? The call to worship. May the words of our mouths and the meditations of our hearts be pleasing to you, O God. Sorry. Year after year, you have poured forth speech, passing stories and statutes down through hands and lips. From you we learned to speak, and speaking we spoke to you, singing songs of consolation that would become your psalms to us, writing poems our children's children would hear as the voice of God. Your law, O Lord, is perfect. Your word is the one that endures. We seek the grammar of your justice in the words that you spoke before. Speak here now. Speak here once more. May the words of our mouths and the meditations of our heart be pleasing to you, O God.
Let's continue to worship God in words through song. Let's stand to sing as we're able. Lead on, O cloud of presence, 194. 194. $790, How Can We Be Silent? This was one that I must have learned on my own, as I sometimes play the keyboard, and I don't think it is familiar to many of you. But the words are powerful, and yeah, I think we'll be able to do it. So let's go ahead. For our ending song, 804, and again, this might be new. It's a very beautiful song and it's simple. So Verna will play it for us.
Please join me now in the prayer of confession. We often miss the beauty in your work, God. Forgive our distracted hearts when we put our trust in other things. Bring joy to us once again. May the meditation of our hearts, our rock and our Redeemer. Come now to the time for offering. The ways that you can give are on screen. Let me offer a brief prayer for the offering. For these offerings this morning, we thank you. We dwell upon the goodness in our lives. Thank you. We cherish in our hearts your gift of life, breath, loving and sharing. Thank you. We are so very grateful for the abundance that you have given us. May we never forget the source of all that is good in our lives.
Good morning. Good morning, young friends up here. I'm Matt. I don't know all of you. Yeah, I think I do know all of you, actually. Okay, I've got something in front of me. Can you see it from where you're sitting? What is it? Yes, go ahead. A map. What is the map? What is the map? Jason. United States. Do you know where you live on here? Can any of you point to where you live? Come here, point to it. Get it right. Yeah, good, good. Okay, so this is the United States map. It's hard to hold. Okay, so this past summer, well, first of all, do you guys know what this country is up here? Canada. You see that lady sitting right behind you? She was born in Canada. That's Verna. She was born over here. Can't see upside down. Well, this summer, I started way up here, somewhere, I can't see it because my glasses, I'm going under my glasses, somewhere over here, and I rode a bike all the way down to New Mexico, which is, let me find it on here. Yeah. 2,700 miles, and I went along the mountains, just up in the middle of nowhere. And I didn't even have one of these. So do you know what I had? I had this, and that's all I had. Just this little device. It's called a Garmin. You set it on the front of your bike. I'll turn it on. And it'll tell you where to go next. But it doesn't tell me, go this way, then go that way, then go this way, then go that way, and then memorize it. It's you go for a while, and then it says, okay, turn right. And sometimes the roads that it told me to turn on just said, turn right on road, because it didn't even have a name, or turn right on trail. And I just follow it turn by turn. So today, when Joel's talking, he's going to be talking about something called the 10 Commandments. And these are the adults, these are the children's version of the 10 Commandments. So we're going to, well, you'll see. These are the 10 Commandments that were given to the Israelites. Now, the Israelites, they had been slaves for hundreds of years. Can you imagine that? Slaves to the Egyptians for hundreds of years. So they didn't even know how to act. And so they needed some direction. So God gave them some directions. So I want you to think of these as like turn-by-turn directions for when things came up. Now I'm going to read these, and we'll see if we can come up with turn-by-turn directions for these. It says, number 1, love God more than anything else. So when somebody would say, hey, do you want to come and worship this other God? They'd be like, no, I don't think so. This turn is to love God more than anything else. And then it says, don't make anything more important than God. So nothing at all. If you have a choice, don't make anything more important than God. And then number 3, we won't do all of these, but always say God's name with love and respect. Honor God by resting on the 7th day. So that's like today. Like go to church and honor God. Love and respect your parents. So like if they got mad at their mom and dad, did they still remember, okay, this is still my mom and dad. Never hurt anyone. So if you got really mad at somebody, don't go in and whack them on the head. Be faithful to your spouse. We'll leave that one be. Don't take anything that isn't yours. So don't, if you have like, if Willa has some markers, don't just come up and steal her markers because they're not yours. Let's see, what's the next one? Always tell the truth. Even if you think you might get in trouble, always tell the truth. And then the last one here is be happy with what you have. Don't wish for other people's things. So don't always think you need something else. Be happy with what you have. Okay, so these are like the instructions, kind of like this gives me turn by turn. Okay, so now, oh no, I got the treats. Oh, I have great treats. Oh wait, I made a map. I have it in here just in case I forgot where they were. You guys want to go find them? Okay, so hold on. I'm going to put this aside. I got it in my Garmin. Set this over here. Verna, you can look at this if you'd like. Okay, so we need to get up. We're going to go on a little adventure. It'll tell us every time we come to a turn, it'll say, okay, turn here, and hopefully we'll find the treats. Okay, ready? Okay, so it says to go this way. Going down this way. Come on, we've got to keep up. Okay, now it says turn right. Which way is right? Okay, I guess we're going that way. Okay, be careful of the scooter. It just says keep going, so we just go until it tells us the next thing. Okay, I don't think we need to go down that path. Okay, it says stop before you get to the 2 stairs. Okay, so turn right again, it says. Oh, but then there's going to be a turn up here. We got to decide if we're going to take it. So let's go straight. And okay, it says turn right on trail. So, okay, it looks like this is the trail. Oh, good, they even have it marked. Oh, wait, we're going to get back to where we started. We're going to go in a big circle. So it says count 11 benches and turn left. Okay, you guys good at counting? Okay, let's start counting. Okay, then it says turn. Whoa! Oh, good, we found it. All right. So Dorothy has some treats, and then once you get your treat, you can head back to your parents. Then you can head back.
And now we'll have the adult version. Exodus 21 to 17. The 10 Commandments. And God spoke all these words. I am the Lord your God who brought you out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery. You shall have no other gods before me. You shall not make for yourself an image in the form of anything in heaven above or on the earth beneath or in the waters below. You shall not bow down to them or worship them, for I am the Lord your God. I am a jealous God, punishing the children for the sin of the parents to the 3rd and 4th generation of those who hate me, but showing love to 1,000 generations of those who love me and keep my commandments. You shall not misuse the name of the Lord your God, for the Lord will not hold anyone guiltless who misuses his name. Remember the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. 6 days you shall labor. 6 days you shall labor, and not do any work, neither you, nor your son or daughter, nor your male or female servant, nor your animals, nor any foreigner residing in your towns. For in 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth, the sea, and all that is in them. But he rested on the seventh day. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and made it holy. Honor your mother and your father, so that you may live long in the land the Lord your God has given you. You shall not murder. You shall not commit adultery. You shall not steal. You shall not give false testimony against your neighbor. You shall not covet your neighbor's house. You shall not covet your neighbor's wife, or his male or female servant, his ox or donkey, or anything that belongs to your neighbor.
Good morning. Sorry. It's good to be worshiping with you this morning here at East Union with our siblings in Christ online. I was thinking this week about limits. Oftentimes when we grow up, we are provided with limits at home, limits at school. Sometimes we struggle with knowing what kinds of limits to set for our children or for maybe our children's friends when they come over. What works well for one person does not always work well for another. I remember in teaching in elementary school, trying to figure out, okay, what worked best for an individual student. Because sometimes, setting one student off by themselves helps to provide some distance and gets that student some space and some time alone to sort of unwind or be quiet. But then the next student, it's like that's their ultimate freedom, and now they're orchestrating and getting the rest of the students in the class off task from a distance. Oftentimes when we set limits, we're thinking about what an individual person can or cannot do, what is good for the individual's well-being. Oftentimes we do this in isolation. We don't necessarily consider how it impacts the rest of the community. When we look at the Ten Commandments, we also see limits placed for everyone. And as many of us have learned, or if you just simply read them, right, they're sort of split into two different categories, two different sections. As many of you have learned, right, they follow the greatest commandment, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. But then there's also within it, love your neighbor as yourself. Again, these 10 commandments are broken into these categories. The first 5 are directed towards God, and they are how individuals should prioritize their faith in God. Their religious loyalty is to God alone. Again, I am the Lord your God who brought you out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery. You shall have no other gods before me. You shall not make for yourself an image in the form of anything in heaven above, or on the earth beneath, or in the waters below. You shall not bow down to them or worship them, for I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, punishing the children for the sin of the parents to the 3rd and 4th generation of those who hate me, but showing love to 1,000 generations of those who love me and keep my commandments. You shall not misuse the name of the Lord your God, for the Lord will not hold anyone guiltless who misuses his name. Remember the Sabbath by keeping it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the 7th, that is the day of the Lord. It is a Sabbath to the Lord your God. On it you shall not do any work. And then it lists again, none of the people that are connected to you, none of your family members, so on. So Exodus reminds the listener or the reader that God is central to our well-being, to the well-being of all people. God is the deliverer, and for that reason, we are not to place anyone or anything above God. We also learn in these first 11 verses that God is jealous and demanding of our attention. Although I view this as a focus on God's desire for a relationship and less about God's rigidity. Sometimes we think it's because God's like yeah, don't do that, don't do this. But in reality, I think it's God calling us, drawing us, and saying, hey, I want relationship with you. We are encouraged to seek and to find God. And there's this sense that when one does, life seems to take on a greater sense of purpose, of stability, and of wholeness. Hearers of these 10 commandments recognize that God is holy and God's way of being in the world is good. And so those who choose to follow the 10 commandments learn that keeping the Sabbath is more than simply obeying God, but is a gift of rest in a world that does not value rest. Right? There's this idea that it's to enhance one's life, to make your life feel more complete. In understanding who God is and what God requires, we are given limits for how to be in the world, how we respond to sort of the stimuli, all the things, the flashes, the noises, the distractions that are around us that compete for our attention and for our fidelity. So I always like to have a side note. Here's the side note for this week. I think there's so much good that we have to live for in our lives, so much to enjoy, and the fruits of life are not evil in and of themselves. I think that's one of the things that we sometimes struggle with. We think it should either be evil or it should be good, and the reality is that oftentimes the things that we have around us are not wholly evil or wholly good. And I think we as Christians have often more often than not feared the things of the world because we assume that they will lead to evil. But it's more insidious than that. I think it's sneakier. We are often confronted with deciding between good things, or a good thing sort of taking on a new or maybe dangerous isn't the right word, but a distraction maybe is a better way of putting it. For example, I am thoroughly enamored with Caitlin Clark. I'm amazed at her ability, her dominance in the NCAA women's basketball. I think it was yesterday, I heard that it made front page news worldwide about her announcement to declare for the WNBA next year. So somebody was on the phone, they were telling a family member somewhere, I think it was like Portugal, that they had heard. Had they heard the news about Caitlin Clark? Oh, yeah. Of course they had. They read it. It was front page news in Portugal, right? They'd already read about it, the statement hours beforehand because of the time change. Right? But whether or not we follow Caitlin Clark, that's not bad or evil. Basketball brings us a lot of joy. It can also bring a lot of fellowship. But basketball can never be in relationship with you. You can't have a relationship with basketball. Basketball can never walk with you through cancer. But I believe God does. I believe God can. And so it's not that I choose to stop paying attention to sports for fear of putting sports ahead of God, but I remind myself every time that I read these commandments that sports and any other diversion that I enjoy cannot fill the void of meaning in my life. The second half of the commandments deal then with how we engage with one another, how we relate to one another. They're really about the communal boundaries that we choose to set up for ourselves and for each other, the limits, and they try to instruct us on how we are called to treat one another, how to live well in community. Honor your father and mother so that you may live long in the land that the Lord your God is giving you. You shall not murder, you shall not commit adultery, you shall not steal, you shall not give false testimony against your neighbor. You shall not covet your neighbor's house, you shall not covet your neighbor's wife or his male or female servant, his ox or donkey, or anything that belongs to your neighbor. And these stated limits remind us that we do not live in isolation. Sometimes we imagine that we'd be better off living by ourselves, but that's not the way that we are designed. We are built, we are created to be in relationship with God and with each other. And so our faithfulness to God is not simply about our own well-being. Even in the Old Testament, we are reminded that God cares about how we care for one another, how we treat each other, how we respond to the needs of one another. Which brings me to the second set of scriptures for today. So we are in year B of the lectionary cycle, and for today we have Exodus 20, verses 1 to 17, which is the Old Testament passage about the Ten Commandments. And for the gospel reading, it's John 2, 13 to 22. And it's the account of when Jesus cleared the temple. I'm going to read verses 13 to 16 for us. So this is John chapter 2, verses 13 to 16. It says, when it was almost time for the Jewish Passover, Jesus went up to Jerusalem. And in the temple courts he found people selling cattle, sheep, and doves, and others sitting at tables exchanging money. So he made a whip out of cords and drove all from the temple courts, both sheep and cattle. He scattered the coins of the money changers and overturned their tables. To those who sold doves, he said, "Get these out of here. Stop turning my Father's house into a market." Now, unlike the Ten Commandments that place equal priority on our relationship to God and to each other, Jesus encountered in the temple a system that only cared about maintaining the status quo, keeping things as they are, ensuring that God is still prioritized, but with a set of qualifications, a set of rules and barriers that dictated who should have access to God, who should be able to be in relationship with God, and how can one do that. And see, the requirements laid on the people, upon the common people, had become, instead of something life-giving, a snare, something that entrapped them, kept them in place, stopped them from being able to freely offer God their heartfelt remorse and contrition, the ability to go to God and say, "Hey, I am a broken vessel, please mend me." That came with stipulations. So the average person no longer had direct access to God's grace and mercy. It was being held captive in the temple court system. And I think we too are sometimes entrapped by our own temple court systems. We too have become stumbling blocks to those who seek relationship with God. We sometimes put requirements on how one needs to be faithful that does not have anything to do with the love of God and the love of neighbor. We sometimes question people's motives and desire them to prove themselves to us. Assimilate, we say. Be like us. Be like me. Or maybe go along to get along. But too much of what we value lies hidden beneath the surface. Unlike the Ten Commandments that are clear and direct and loud and in your face, a lot of what we require of people is hidden. For example, how many Sundays does someone need to attend this church before they feel comfortable choosing their place to sit? How many Sundays before they find a Sunday school class or learn about the ministries of East Union? What happens if they don't look like us, or do not think like us, or do not articulate their faith exactly like us? So I'm concerned sometimes that we have not understood this idea of freedom and limits. We just think of limits. I don't know if this has ever happened to you, but I remember, I think it always happens in middle school. For some reason, there's all these hidden rules in middle school. It's not nearly as clear as the rest of our lives. And I remember, I think I've told this story before, but I'm going to retell it. You're a captive audience. So I remember wanting a coat or whatever, and we had gone out shopping one time, and I picked out a jacket, and I really liked it. It was brown, had Carhartt on it. It's really sturdy, nice. And I wore it to school, and I thought, yeah, this is good stuff, right? Like, I liked it. Felt good in it. And almost immediately, somebody came up and said, "Carhartt?" And I was like, what? And then another person said, you like Carhartt? Well, guess what? All of a sudden, I didn't like Carhartt very much. So I went home, and I think I got mom to do it, but I'm not sure exactly. But like, we carefully took out all the stitches and removed the Carhartt little tag that was sewn onto the front of the jacket. Well, obviously, there's like a little dark spot right where the the tag was still embedded. And what I realized from that experience is that not only did I not feel good about what I had chosen to value, but I really didn't want anybody else to feel good about what they valued either. You know what I mean? Like, in my mind, I kind of wanted to inflict some of the same shame and pain on someone else. Who else could I point out that their coat wasn't really that cool? Sometimes I think we wish that, right? We wish that others would feel the way that we do when we feel small. And sometimes I think we don't even do this consciously. It's like baked into us in our subconscious. But freedom and limits, I think, only works when the limits are life-giving, when they are about relationship, when they are about helping us find new life and wholeness. Within the Ten Commandments, we see limits that emphasize our relationship to God, to a set of boundaries that are meant to strengthen that relationship to God, not to hinder it. See, the rules here on the Ten Commandments are not about restricting us to punish us. It's about giving us a better pathway to a greater relationship with the one who wants a relationship in the first place. Within the Ten Commandments, we see limits that emphasize healthy relationships to each other, to those inside and outside of the community. These limits express how we would want to be treated, and they encourage a sense of trust and safety for all. So I think when we consider these limits for the type of life that they help to provide, we can see them as freeing, as a way to deepen our relationship, something of value, worthy of our time and effort. In Jesus' confrontation with the folks in the temple courts, we also see one who was actively breaking down barriers. And he was doing this for the very same reasons that the Ten Commandments were laid out, right? It was about access. It was about relationship to God and to neighbor. Overturning the tables and disrupting the corruption of the money changers was about the same limits that are expressed in these commandments. Again, access, right relationship. No one can take advantage of another and be free. No one can stand in between a person of faith and God and have a right relationship. And so I think we are called to ask ourselves, how have we become like money changers? What barriers and obstructions have we constructed and reinforced that stop people from encountering God? We must be about right relationship to God, to neighbor. May we clearly see the ways in which we as a church don't always seek right relationship with God. May we clearly see the ways in which we as a church do not seek right relationship with each other, with our neighbors, with ourselves. May this strengthen our resolve to overturn the tables and disperse the money changers within our hearts and our lives. May it be so.
Let's stand to sing Draw the Circle. I'm going to sing the first line for you, and then I want the women to repeat it with me, and then everyone join in where we have the parts, okay? This is another new song, and our choir has worked on this one, so I'm counting on you choir members out there to support everyone in this. stand to sing. Praise God, from whom all blessings flow.
Now we receive this benediction blessing. Jesus has made space for everyone in the temple courts. Jesus has made space for you in the temple courts. May you also make space for others. Go in peace.